Her marriage ended with a text message, cold, heartless, and final. Before she could even wipe her tears, her husband had drained their 200 million Naira joint account, laughing at how easy it was to leave her penniless. He thought he had broken her, reduced her to nothing. What he didn't know was that the real destruction was already on its way, and it was his. This is the story of a woman discarded like trash, stripped of dignity and wealth, who rose from betrayal with a vengeance her husband never imagined. Hello, family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request, please. Subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Her life ended with a text message. That morning, Margaret Harris, Maggie to everyone who loved her, was standing in the kitchen, humming softly while flipping pancakes for her children. The smell of butter filled the house. It should have been a normal morning, the kind of morning she lived for. But what she didn't know was that before the sun had even fully risen, her husband had already decided she no longer existed. Maggie was 38, graceful and calm. She was the kind of woman who smiled at strangers, who remembered birthdays, who gave her whole self to the people she loved. She had given up her career in banking years ago so Richard, her husband, could build his empire without distraction. She raised their children, Claire and Jason, managed the home, and never complained. Everyone in the community said the Harrises had the perfect marriage. Richard was charming, successful, and handsome in a sharp, expensive way. Maggie was beautiful, though in a softer, quieter style. Together they looked like a picture from a magazine, the powerful man and the devoted wife who stood proudly at his side. But that was only what the world saw. Behind the closed doors of their mansion, Richard's smile disappeared. The illusion was on full display the night before, at their 12th wedding anniversary dinner. The restaurant was crowded with friends, business partners, and extended family. Gold lights glowed above the tables. Waiters carried glasses of champagne and plates of seafood. Richard stood tall at the head of the room, glass in hand, his voice booming. "To my beautiful wife, Margaret," he announced, pulling her close for a kiss on the cheek, "the woman who made me who I am today. Without her sacrifices, I would be nothing." The guests clapped and cheered. Maggie blushed, embarrassed by the attention, and gave a polite smile. For a moment she believed him. She wanted to believe him. But while she was still basking in the praise, Richard's hand slid into his pocket, pulling out his phone. Beneath the table, hidden from the guests, he typed quickly. Maggie caught the faint glow of the screen and glanced down. She didn't need to see the words to know who he was texting. Chloe, the young secretary who never left Richard's side at the office. She was in her mid-20s, with glossy hair and the kind of beauty that turned heads. Richard spoke of her often, always with exaggerated admiration. Chloe is efficient, Chloe is sharp, Chloe is the future. Maggie had once asked why he mentioned her so often. Richard had laughed. "Because she works hard, Maggie. Not like you sitting at home, growing soft." That laugh still stung. At the dinner, Maggie's smile stayed frozen, while Richard leaned in to whisper, "Don't look so stiff. You should be grateful. No one in this room knows how useless you really are." His lips curled cruelly. "You're too simple. That's your problem. Too simple for a man like me." Maggie's hand trembled around her champagne glass. She looked around the room at the smiling faces, the clinking glasses. To them, Richard was the perfect husband. No one saw the way his eyes cut into her like knives. Over the following weeks, Maggie noticed things. Withdrawals from their joint account, thousands of dollars missing without explanation. Late nights at the office that stretched into dawn. Phone calls he refused to take in front of her. One evening, she gathered the courage to ask. "Richard," she said softly as he came home past midnight, smelling of cologne that wasn't his usual brand. "I saw some withdrawals in the account. $40,000 gone in 1 week. Is everything all right?" Richard dropped his briefcase on the sofa and sneered. "Are you spying on me now? I just thought—" "You thought what? That I need to explain myself to you?" He stepped closer, towering over her. "That money is mine. I built this empire. You've done nothing but sit at home, playing perfect wife. Don't question me, Margaret. You're not smart enough to understand business." Her chest tightened. The Maggie who once believed she was his partner, his equal, felt smaller with every word. The morning it all fell apart began like any other. Maggie was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes for Jason and Claire. The children giggled at the table, fighting over syrup. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She wiped her hands on a towel and glanced at the screen. It was a text message from Richard. "It's over. Don't call me. The account is mine now." Her breath caught in her throat. She read the words again, but they didn't change. Her hand trembled so violently the phone almost slipped from her grasp. She rushed to the banking app, her fingers fumbling. The screen loaded, and then the truth hit her like a blade to the chest. The joint account balance, $0. More than $500,000, every cent they had saved together, was gone. Maggie's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the counter, struggling to breathe. "Mom?" Claire's voice was small, worried. "Are you okay?" Maggie forced a smile, her lips trembling. "I'm fine, sweetheart." "Eat your breakfast." But inside she wasn't fine. Inside, her whole world was collapsing. Maggie waited until the children left for school before she called him. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. Richard answered on the second ring, his voice calm, almost amused. "Why are you calling me? Didn't you read the message?" "Richard, what is this?" Her voice cracked. "The account, our account, it's empty. $500,000 gone. Why would you do this to me? To us?" He laughed, a sharp, cruel laugh that cut straight through her. "Our account? Stop fooling yourself, Maggie. That money was mine. I earned it. I built everything from nothing while you sat at home playing housewife. You think you deserve half of it? You've been living off me like a parasite." Maggie's lips parted in shock. "A parasite? I gave up everything for you. My career, my dreams. I raised your children, kept your home, stood by you through every storm." "Don't be dramatic," Richard snapped. "You stood by me because you had nowhere else to go. Don't act like you sacrificed. You were lucky I even picked you in the first place. Look at you now, pushing 40, tired, plain. You think a man like me deserves that?" Maggie gasped, pressing the phone to her ear as if that could shield her from the words. Her chest ached as if her heart itself were splitting open. "Richard, please. We have children. What am I supposed to tell them?" "Tell them the truth," Richard said coldly. Their father finally got tired of pretending. "I don't love you anymore. I haven't in years. Chloe is the woman I want. She's young, beautiful, and smart. Not simple." The word struck her like a slap. Simple. He had called her that before, but this time it landed with deadly finality. Maggie whispered, "You're throwing away 12 years of marriage for a secretary?" Richard chuckled. "For a real woman, yes. And let me give you some advice, Maggie. Don't embarrass yourself by begging or showing up at my office. You're nothing to me now. The sooner you accept that, the better." Then the line went dead. Maggie stared at the silent phone, her whole body trembling. She tried to call again, but it went straight to voicemail. When she checked her messages, she found another text waiting. "Don't contact me again. This marriage is finished. I'll send my lawyer the divorce papers. And don't dream of touching my money. It's mine." Her vision blurred. Tears streamed down her cheeks, hot and uncontrollable. She dropped the phone on the counter and covered her face with both hands, sobbing into her palms. All around her, the kitchen looked the same. The pancakes, the plates, the syrup bottle on the table. But everything felt different. The air was heavy, suffocating. The walls seemed to close in on her. For 12 years, she had believed in the illusion, the devoted wife, the strong husband, the happy family. She had believed the public displays, the speeches, the smiles. She had believed that love and sacrifice meant something. Now she realized it had all been a mask. Later that day, she gathered her strength and drove to Richard's office. She couldn't accept that it was real, not without looking him in the eyes. When she arrived, Chloe was at the front desk, her red lips curved in a sly smile. Maggie's heart twisted. The younger woman didn't even try to hide her satisfaction. "Mrs. Harris," Chloe said sweetly, almost mocking, "didn't you get the message?" Maggie's throat tightened. "I need to see my husband." "He's not your husband anymore," Chloe replied, her voice low and cruel. Before Maggie could respond, Richard appeared from his office, arm casually draped around Chloe's waist. He looked down at Maggie with the same cold smile she had heard in his voice earlier. "Margaret," he said smoothly, "don't embarrass yourself. It's over. You should have known this day was coming." Her knees weakened. "How can you stand here and humiliate me like this? After everything," Richard cut her off. "Everything? You mean the years I wasted chained to a woman with no ambition, no spark? I should have left you years ago. Chloe is the future. Your history." Chloe leaned into him, smirking as if enjoying the show. Richard pulled her closer, whispering loud enough for Maggie to hear. "See? This is what a real woman looks like." The words crushed Maggie. She turned away quickly, fighting back tears, determined not to let them see her break completely in public. But inside she was collapsing, piece by piece. That night Maggie sat on her bed in the dark, staring at her phone. She had checked the account again, still empty. The life savings she once thought would secure their children's future was gone. Her children slept peacefully in the next room, unaware that their world had just shattered. Maggie sat with her arms wrapped around herself, rocking slowly. Her body shook with silent sobs. She felt invisible, discarded like trash. Her marriage, her dignity, her security. It was all gone with one text message. As the clock ticked past midnight, she whispered into the darkness, "Why, Richard? Why was I never enough?" No answer came, only silence. And in that silence, Maggie finally understood. The perfect life she thought she had was nothing more than a cruel illusion. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? The news spread faster than wildfire. By the end of the week, everyone in the community seemed to know that Richard Harris had left his wife for a younger woman. Neighbors whispered as Maggie walked by, their eyes filled with pity or judgment. Some shook their heads as if she had failed an exam in life. Others smirked, whispering loudly enough for her to hear. "She should have seen it coming," one woman said outside the grocery store. "She let herself go," another added. "What did she expect? Richard's too successful for someone like her." "She's too old now," someone else murmured. "Men like Richard always trade up." Each word cut Maggie deeper than a knife. She walked past with her head down, clutching a small bag of groceries she had paid for, with the last crumpled bills in her purse. Even her friends, women she had shared secrets and dinners with, stopped calling. When she reached out, their phones went unanswered. Messages were left unread. It was as if her entire social circle had decided she was contagious, her humiliation, something they might catch if they stood too close. At church, the pews she once shared with smiling couples now felt like cold stone. When she tried to greet a neighbor, the woman simply nodded stiffly and turned away. Maggie sat alone, her hands clenched in her lap, praying silently while holding back tears. One afternoon, the children came home from school unusually quiet. Maggie knew something was wrong the moment she saw their faces. "What happened?" she asked softly, kneeling down to meet their eyes. Jason, only 10 years old, shifted uncomfortably. Claire, 12, stared at the floor. Finally, Claire whispered, "Some kids said, they said Daddy left you because you're old and boring." "They laughed, Mom. They said Daddy has a new wife now." The words knocked the air out of Maggie's lungs. She hugged her daughter tightly, forcing herself not to cry. Jason's small arms wrapped around her waist too, trembling. "I'm so sorry," Maggie whispered, kissing their heads. "Don't listen to them. Your father, he made choices, but you are not to blame. None of this is your fault." But as she held them, her own heart screamed with shame. How could she protect them from a storm she couldn't even survive herself? Days later, Unable to bear the silence, Maggie drove to the new apartment Richard had rented. She wanted to see him face to face, to beg him to at least think of their children. When the door opened, Chloe was there, dressed in silk, her hair shining like she had stepped out of a magazine. Behind her, Richard appeared, wearing a robe and holding a glass of wine. Maggie's stomach turned. "Richard, please, can we talk? Just for a moment. The kids are hurting. They need their father." Richard smirked, sipping his wine. "The kids will be fine. They'll learn to live with reality. You should too." "Reality?" Maggie's voice shook. "You destroyed our marriage, our family, our savings. How can you stand here and act like it means nothing?" Richard stepped closer, his face hard. "Because it does mean nothing, Maggie. You mean nothing. I've moved on. You should accept your place." As history, Chloe leaned against the doorframe, her lips curling in amusement. She didn't say a word, but her smirk said everything. Maggie had lost, and Chloe had won. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "How can you be so cruel? After everything—" Richard cut her off sharply. "Enough. Don't come here again. You'll get the divorce papers soon. Stop humiliating yourself." The door slammed in her face. Maggie stood there, trembling in the hallway, her cheeks burning with shame. For the first time in her life, she felt like a ghost, invisible and unwanted. The betrayal cut deeper when she turned to family. Richard's mother, a frail woman Maggie had once nursed through illness, refused to even look at her. "You drained my son," the old woman spat when Maggie tried to speak. "He gave you everything, and you still failed him. Don't come here again. You're no longer part of this family." Maggie felt her knees weaken. She left the house with tears streaming down her face, realizing she had not only lost her husband, but every bond she thought she had built over 12 years. Soon the letters started coming. Bills, overdue notices, then an eviction warning. The mortgage payments hadn't been made for months. Maggie stared at the papers in shock, her hands shaking. "How could this be?" she whispered. "We paid off this house years ago." But when she looked closer, her blood ran cold. Richard had secretly taken out a new mortgage against their home, using her forged signature. He had drained the money and left her responsible for the debt. Her vision blurred. She sank into a chair, clutching the paper to her chest, her sobs echoing through the empty house. One evening, as she sat staring blankly at the stack of unpaid school fees for Claire and Jason, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a man standing quietly holding a briefcase. His face was familiar, gentle eyes, calm smile. "Margaret?" he asked softly. Maggie blinked. "Henry?" It had been years since she'd last seen him. Henry Williams, her childhood friend, the boy who used to walk her home from school, now a grown man. He looked older, steadier, dressed in a suit. "I heard about what happened," Henry said gently. I'm sorry, Maggie. I can't imagine what you're going through." Her eyes filled again. "Everyone else vanished. Why are you here?" "Because I don't believe in kicking someone when they're down." He paused, then added, "And because you're not as powerless as you think. I'm a lawyer now. If Richard did what people are saying, there may be legal grounds to fight back." Maggie shook her head weakly. "Fight back? Against Richard? He has everything. Money, connections, power. I have nothing." Henry's gaze was steady. "You have the truth. And sometimes that's enough. Don't give up yet. Please." For the first time in weeks, a tiny spark flickered inside Maggie's chest. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was something. She looked at Henry, her voice trembling. "He mortgaged the house behind my back, forged my signature, took everything. What kind of man does that to the mother of his children?" Henry's jaw tightened. "The kind of man who believes he's untouchable." "But he isn't, Maggie. Not if we can prove what he did." Maggie stared down at the papers in her lap, her tears blurring the ink. Her world was still broken, her heart still shattered. But for the first time since that text message, she thought, maybe Richard Harris wasn't invincible after all. The first time Maggie sat in Henry's office, she felt like she was walking into a foreign world. The room smelled faintly of paper and ink, the walls lined with heavy books on law. She sat across from him, hands folded tightly in her lap, as if holding herself together was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Henry pushed a file across the desk toward her. "I've been looking into Richard's accounts," he said carefully, "and what I found doesn't look clean." Maggie opened the file with trembling fingers. Inside were bank statements, property documents, and contracts, most with Richard's name. Some bore her own name too, her signature scrawled across them. She frowned. "I never signed these," she whispered. "I know," Henry said. "They're forgeries. He used your name to take out loans and mortgages. That's fraud, and that's just the beginning. Some of these accounts are tied to companies overseas. The transfers don't add up. It looks like he's been laundering money." Maggie's stomach dropped. She stared at the papers, her pulse racing. Money laundering? Richard? But he's so careful about his image. Everyone thinks he's a saint. "That's exactly why he gets away with it," Henry replied. "People trust him. No one ever questions the man who looks perfect in public." Maggie leaned back in her chair, tears threatening her eyes again. "If I expose this, it'll destroy him completely. He's the children's father, Henry. What will it do to them?" Henry studied her quietly. "You're asking the wrong question. The real question is, what will happen to you and the children if you don't expose him?" Maggie pressed her hands to her face. The weight of the choice crushed her. If she spoke up, she risked shattering her children's image of their father. If she stayed silent, Richard would keep destroying her life piece by piece until nothing remained. While Maggie wrestled with the truth, Richard was busy crafting his new reality with Chloe. To the world, Chloe was the glamorous new partner on his arm. Youthful, radiant, a shining contrast to the wife he discarded. But behind the glossy photos and expensive dresses, Chloe was learning a painful truth. Richard Harris was just as cruel to her as he had been to Maggie. One evening in their apartment, Chloe returned from shopping with bags in her hand. She smiled, holding up a red dress. "What do you think?" "It'll be perfect for the gala." Richard barely glanced up from his drink. "Too flashy." "You'll look cheap," her smile faltered. "Richard, you said—" "Don't argue with me," he snapped, his tone sharp as glass. "You're here because I chose you. Don't forget that. Without me, you're nothing. You'd still be answering phones for pennies if it wasn't for me." Chloe bit her lip, anger burning beneath her skin. But when she opened her mouth, Richard slammed his glass on the table. "Don't talk back to me." Another time, the argument escalated. She asked for access to the joint account he had promised her. Richard's eyes narrowed. "My money isn't your money. Don't get ideas. You're just the secretary who got lucky." When she tried to defend herself, he struck her across the face with the back of his hand. The sting burned, the humiliation cutting even deeper. She stared at him, tears in her eyes. "How dare you?" Richard leaned in close, his voice cold. "Don't test me, Chloe. You can be replaced." That night, as she sat alone in the dark with ice pressed to her cheek, Chloe realized the truth. She wasn't his future. She wasn't his partner. She was disposable, just like Margaret. The betrayal grew worse. Weeks later, Chloe accidentally overheard Richard on the phone in his office. He was laughing, his voice smooth and charming. "Yes, Mr. Bennett. Your daughter is perfect, young, beautiful, comes from a powerful family. She'll be an excellent match. Once the divorce is finalized, we'll set a date. My marriage to Margaret was a mistake, but this time I'll make the right choice." Chloe froze in the hallway, her blood running cold. She pressed a hand to her stomach to stop the nausea rising inside her. He was planning to marry someone else, an investor's daughter, using her, Chloe, as a stepping stone. The anger that boiled inside her was like nothing she had ever felt. All the promises, the whispered lies, the expensive gifts, none of it mattered. To Richard, she was just a tool. That was the night Chloe made her decision. If he thought she was disposable, then she would make sure he paid for it. Quietly, she began recording their conversations. She saved messages, emails, receipts, every trace of his illegal dealings. She built a secret archive of evidence, waiting for the right time to use it. Meanwhile, Maggie's life continued to unravel. The eviction notices piled up. The school called again about unpaid fees. The fridge was nearly empty. She sat at the kitchen table late into the night, staring at the stack of bills, her heart heavy with despair. Her children's voices haunted her. Claire asking, "Mom, why doesn't Dad come around anymore?" Jason whispering, "Is it because of us?" She wept quietly where they couldn't see her. When Henry visited, he found her sitting in the dark. "Maggie," he said gently, pulling up a chair. "I know you're tired. I know this feels impossible, but you're stronger than you think." She shook her head. "I don't feel strong. I feel broken. Every day I wake up and wonder if this is just a nightmare. But it's not. It's real." Henry leaned forward. "Maggie, listen to me. Richard isn't invincible. I've seen men like him fall before. He thinks he's above the law, but he isn't. We just need proof. Solid proof. And then we can bring him down." Maggie looked at him through her tears. "Proof? How am I supposed to get that? He guards everything. He has power, money, connections." Henry's eyes softened. "Sometimes the people closest to a man like Richard are the ones who turn on him." The hint of an answer came one night when Maggie stopped by a small cafe. She wanted a quiet place to think, away from the stares and whispers. As she sipped her coffee in the corner, she heard laughter from a nearby table. It was Chloe. Her hair was messy, her cheeks flushed with alcohol. She was with a friend, speaking louder than she realized. "Richard thinks he owns me," Chloe slurred bitterly, waving her glass. "But he doesn't know I've got his secrets. I've got everything. The recordings, the documents. One day he'll regret underestimating me." Maggie froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She leaned closer, her breath shallow, straining to hear every word. "He thinks I'll stay quiet," Chloe continued, her voice dripping with venom. "But I'm not stupid. If he can betray Margaret, he can betray me too. And I won't go down like her. No, I'll be the one to finish him." Her friend gasped. "You're serious?" Chloe smirked, her eyes dark. "Dead serious." Maggie's hands trembled as she gripped her coffee cup. She had come here to escape, but instead, she had stumbled onto the key to Richard's destruction. For the first time, she realized she wasn't alone. Someone else hated him just as much. And that someone was sitting just a few feet away, bragging that she held the very secrets that could bring Richard Harris to his knees. Maggie sat awake all night, staring at the ceiling. Chloe's drunken words replayed in her mind over and over. "He doesn't know I've got his secrets." By dawn, her decision was clear. If she wanted justice, she would have to do the unthinkable. She would have to face Chloe. It wasn't easy. The thought of standing before the woman who had stolen her husband made Maggie's stomach twist. But this wasn't about jealousy anymore. This was about survival, hers and her children's. The next afternoon, she walked into the same cafe where she had overheard Chloe. The younger woman was there again, sunglasses perched on her head, sipping coffee like nothing in the world could touch her. Maggie's heart pounded as she approached. "Chloe!" Chloe looked up, surprise flickering across her face before it shifted to a sly smile. "Well, well." If it isn't the ghost of Richard's past, Maggie swallowed her pride. "I'm not here to fight you. I know what you said the other night. About the secrets you're keeping. I need them." Chloe leaned back in her chair, studying her with narrowed eyes. "Why should I give you anything? You hate me. I'm the reason he left you." "You're not the reason he left me," Maggie said firmly, her voice trembling but strong. "Richard left because he's cruel. You know that now. He used me. He's using you, and he'll throw you away the moment you're no longer useful. You said it yourself for a moment." Silence stretched between them. Then Chloe sighed, her mask slipping. "You're right. He thinks he owns me, but he doesn't. I've had enough." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small flash drive. She set it on the table between them. "Every recording I've made, his confessions, his deals, his plans, use it. Burn him with it." Maggie's hands shook as she picked it up. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because I want to watch him fall," Chloe said simply. "And because maybe you deserve to win." The plan came together quickly. Henry reviewed the recordings and combined them with the forged documents Maggie had kept. Together, it was more than enough to bring Richard's empire crashing down. We'll give this to the authorities, Henry explained, but the timing has to be perfect. He has a dinner with investors this Friday. If they see him dragged away in handcuffs, it'll destroy his reputation instantly. Maggie nodded, her stomach in knots. The idea of watching Richard arrested filled her with both dread and anticipation. For so long, he had been untouchable. Now, finally, justice was within reach. Friday night arrived. Richard's grand business dinner sparkled with chandeliers and champagne. Men in suits shook hands. Women in gowns laughed politely. Richard stood in the center, glass raised high, Chloe still by his side, though her smile was colder now. To success, Richard declared. To loyalty and power. Tonight marks a new chapter for us all. The applause was loud, but it was cut short when the doors burst open. Uniformed officers strode into the room, their voices commanding. Richard Harris, you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. The room erupted in gasps. Cameras flashed as investors pulled out their phones. Richard's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. This is a mistake, he shouted, his face red with fury. Do you know who I am? You can't do this to me. But the officers ignored him. They cuffed his wrists in front of everyone, dragging him toward the exit. His guests recoiled, whispering in horror. Chloe quietly stepped back, letting him fall alone. By morning, headlines screamed across every newspaper and website. Business tycoon Richard Harris arrested in fraud scandal. Empire collapses overnight. From glory to disgrace, Richard Harris exposed. The same neighbors who once mocked Maggie now spit Richard's name like poison. His empire crumbled in a single night. Investors pulling out, contracts canceled, friends disappearing like smoke. Weeks later, the courtroom was filled to the brim. Reporters scribbled notes, cameras clicked. Maggie sat at one table with Henry by her side, her children watching quietly from the benches behind her. Richard sat across the room, pale and angry, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide his downfall. When the judge entered, the room went silent. Henry stood and presented the evidence. Forged documents with Maggie's falsified signature, detailed bank records of laundering, and recordings of Richard himself bragging about his schemes. Every piece was airtight. Richard's lawyer tried to object, but the truth was undeniable. At last, the judge turned to Richard. You stand accused of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Richard rose to his feet, his voice cracking with rage. This is a conspiracy. She's lying. They're all lying. I'm Richard Harris. I built everything. I'm the victim here. Maggie stood slowly, her voice calm but clear. You thought you destroyed me, Richard, but you only destroyed yourself. The room went silent. Richard's eyes blazed as he glared at her, but there was nothing he could do. The gavel fell. Guilty. After the sentencing, Maggie walked out of the courthouse with her children on either side, their small hands gripping hers. The sun was bright, the air crisp, as if the world itself had been washed clean. Behind her, Richard's voice roared from the holding cell. Maggie! Maggie! His screams echoed, desperate and furious, but she didn't turn back. She held her head high, her children beside her, every step forward a victory. For the first time in months, she felt light. Not because the pain was gone, it would take time, but because she had survived it. She had faced betrayal, humiliation, and despair, and still found the strength to rise. As they reached the courthouse steps, Claire squeezed her mother's hand. Mom, are we going to be okay now? Maggie smiled softly. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. They walked into the sunlight together, leaving the shadows behind.
The champagne glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the marble floor. Not because I was clumsy, but because my mother-in-law had just grabbed my arm with the force of a woman possessed. You think we don't know what you are? Patricia Hastings hissed in my face, her breath heavy with expensive wine. You think you can fool us forever? 200 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits turned to stare. The orchestra stopped playing. This was supposed to be a celebration of Patricia and Gerald Hastings' 30th wedding anniversary. Instead, it was about to become my public execution. Mom, what are you doing? I looked around for my husband Trevor, but he stood near the grand staircase with his arms crossed, watching with cold eyes. Next to him stood Candace Pierce, the woman from his office, wearing a smile that made my stomach turn. "Exposing you," Trevor's sister Monica said, stepping forward with her sister Rebecca. "You gold-digging little liar." I tried to pull away, but Patricia's grip tightened. "Let go of me." "You married my son for his money," Patricia announced to the crowd. "You trapped him with your lies and your pretty face. Well, not anymore. Trevor has finally seen the truth." My heart pounded. "What are you talking about? I love Trevor. I've always loved him." "Love?" Rebecca laughed sharply. "You're a secretary who barely makes $30,000 a year. You saw a rich man and sank your claws in." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. But it was partially true. I had worked as a secretary when I met Trevor. What they didn't know was why. "Strip her," Patricia commanded. Time seemed to slow down. "What?" "You heard me. We're taking back everything the Hastings family gave you. Starting with that dress." Patricia grabbed the shoulder of my burgundy silk gown, the one I'd bought with my own money. "Stop it." I tried to push her away, but Monica and Rebecca grabbed my arms. Their perfectly manicured nails dug into my skin. "Mom, please," I begged, looking at the crowd. Nobody moved. Nobody helped. They just watched with their phones out, recording my nightmare. Patricia ripped the fabric. The sound of tearing silk cut through the silent ballroom like a scream. I struggled, but they were 3 against 1. They pulled and tore until my dress fell in pieces around my feet, leaving me standing in my undergarments in front of 200 people. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "Look at her," Candace called out from her spot next to Trevor. "Not so confident now, are you?" Trevor walked down the stairs, his footsteps echoing. He stopped in front of me, looking down at my nearly naked body with disgust. This was the man who had promised to love me forever. The man I'd married 3 years ago in a small ceremony because he said he wanted something intimate. "I want a divorce," he said flatly. "I'm marrying Candace. Someone who actually belongs in our world." The crowd gasped and whispered. Camera flashes went off. I stood there, shaking, humiliated beyond anything I'd ever experienced. "You have nothing without me," Trevor continued. "No money, no status, no future. You're nobody, Simone. You always were." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him exactly who I was. But something stopped me. A presence I felt before I saw. In the back of the crowd, partially hidden behind a marble column, stood a tall man in an impeccable black suit. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His dark eyes, so like mine, watched everything with an expression that would have terrified anyone who knew him. Vincent Montgomery. My father. One of the richest men in the country. The CEO of Montgomery Industries, a global empire worth billions. He raised his phone slightly, still recording. Our eyes met, and he gave me the smallest nod. I understood. This wasn't the time. Not yet. I lifted my chin and looked Trevor straight in the eye. "You're right about one thing. I'm nobody to you. I never was." I turned and walked through the crowd, wearing nothing but my dignity and undergarments. People parted like the Red Sea. Some looked shocked, others looked ashamed. Most just kept recording. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, every step measured and deliberate. Behind me, Patricia's voice rang out. "Good riddance to trash." The crowd laughed and applauded. Outside, the night air hit my bare skin. A valet stumbled forward with a coat, his face red with embarrassment and anger at what he'd witnessed. "Ma'am, please." "Thank you," I whispered, wrapping it around myself. A Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up, black as midnight. The door opened and my father stepped out. "Hello, sweetheart," Vincent said quietly, taking off his jacket and draping it over the coat. "Ready to go home?" I nodded, unable to speak. The dam broke and tears finally fell. Vincent helped me into the car, then climbed in beside me. As we pulled away from the Hastings estate, I looked back at the mansion lit up like a jewel, full of people celebrating their victory over me. They had no idea what was coming. "Dad," I finally said. "Thank you for not interfering." "You asked me to let you handle it your way," he replied, his voice hard as steel. "But that ends tonight. Now we handle it my way." I leaned against his shoulder, the way I used to when I was a little girl and the world felt too big and scary. "Make them pay," I whispered. Vincent's smile was sharp as a blade. "Oh, darling. They'll pay in ways they can't even imagine." The car drove into the night, carrying me away from the worst moment of my life and toward something I hadn't felt in 3 years of marriage. Hope. The Rolls-Royce glided through the city streets in silence. I stared out the window, watching the lights blur past, trying to process what had just happened. My body wouldn't stop shaking. He just stood there, I said, my voice hollow. Trevor just stood there and let them do that to me. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd placed a soft blanket over my legs and turned up the heat in the car, but I still felt cold down to my bones. Did you get everything on video? I asked. Every second. Vincent pulled out his phone and showed me. The video quality was perfect, the sound clear. Patricia's face twisted with cruelty as she tore my dress. Trevor's cold dismissal. Candace's mocking laughter. The crowd's participation in my humiliation. Send it to me, I said. Simone. Send it, Dad. Please. He transferred the file to my phone. I watched it once, forcing myself to see what they'd done. The woman in the video looked so small, so vulnerable. But she hadn't broken. She'd walked out with dignity. I could work with that. Why didn't you tell them who you were? Vincent asked quietly. One word and they would have been on their knees. Because I wanted to see if Trevor really loved me, I said, fresh tears sliding down my cheeks. I wanted to know if I could be loved for just being me, not for being your daughter. Not for the money or the power. Just me. Oh, sweetheart. I was so stupid. You were hopeful. That's not the same thing. Vincent handed me his handkerchief. You gave him 3 years to prove himself. He failed spectacularly. I laughed bitterly. How long have you known about Candace? 6 months. I had you followed like I promised I wouldn't. He looked guilty. I'm sorry. But when the investigator told me about Trevor's affair, I had to know more. I wanted to tell you, but I wouldn't have believed you, I finished. I would have thought you were trying to break us up because you never approved of him. Correct. The car pulled up to Vincent's penthouse building in the heart of downtown. The doorman opened my door, his face carefully neutral as he took in my appearance. If he was shocked, he didn't show it. Miss Montgomery, he said with a respectful nod. Welcome home. Those words hit me hard. Home. I hadn't been to my father's penthouse in 3 years. Trevor had convinced me that we needed distance from my family, that we needed to build our own life together. Another lie in a marriage built on them. The private elevator rose to the top floor. Vincent's penthouse took up the entire level, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Your old room is exactly as you left it, Vincent said. I'll have Martha bring you some clothes. Martha, my father's housekeeper, appeared before he finished speaking. She was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She took one look at me and her face hardened with anger. Oh, Miss Simone, she breathed. What did they do to you? Nothing I won't recover from, I said, trying to sound strong. Come with me, dear. Let's get you into something comfortable. Martha guided me down the familiar hallway to my old bedroom. Nothing had changed. My books were still on the shelves, my photos on the walls. It was like stepping back in time. She helped me out of the coat and valet jacket, her gentle hands careful not to hurt me. I had bruises forming on my arms where Monica and Rebecca had grabbed me. Those horrible women, Martha muttered, seeing the marks. And that man you married. I never liked him, Miss Simone. Forgive me for saying so. You were right, I said numbly. She dressed me in soft pajamas and a robe, then brushed out my hair like she used to when I was young. The familiar routine soothed something raw inside me. When I came back to the living room, Vincent was on the phone. I don't care what time it is, Robert. I need you here now. Yes, tonight. He hung up and turned to me. My attorney is on his way. Already? We strike while the iron is hot. Vincent poured himself a scotch, then looked at me. Tea. Please. We sat on the white leather sofa, the city spread out before us like a sea of stars. Vincent handed me a cup of chamomile tea, and I wrapped my hands around its warmth. I never wanted to be right about him, Vincent said after a long moment. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped Trevor would prove me to be a prejudiced old man who couldn't see past his own privilege. You're not old, I said automatically, and he smiled. I'm 58, sweetheart. That's old enough. You were right about everything. He married me because he thought I was poor and harmless. Someone he could control. I sipped the tea. Did you know his family had investigators look into my background? Vincent's eyebrow rose. No. Trevor told me 6 months ago. They found out I worked as a secretary, saw my small apartment, my old car. They concluded I was exactly what I appeared to be, a woman from a modest background who got lucky. I laughed without humor. I was so careful. Different last name, different circles, a completely separate life from yours. Brown instead of Montgomery, Vincent said, referring to my mother's maiden name that I'd used. I thought it would give me freedom. Instead, it gave Trevor permission to treat me as less than. He would have treated you poorly regardless, Vincent said firmly. Men like Trevor Hastings see women as possessions, not partners. Money wouldn't have changed that. The elevator dinged and Robert Fitzgerald, my father's personal attorney, stepped out. He was a sharp-faced man in his 50s, carrying a briefcase and looking wide awake despite the late hour. Vincent. Miss Montgomery. He nodded at us both. I came as quickly as I could. I assume this is about the incident at the Hastings party? You already know? I asked, surprised. It's all over social media, Robert said grimly. The video is everywhere. The hashtag Hastings humiliation is trending. My stomach dropped. They posted it? Multiple people did. Different angles, different perspectives. All showing the same thing, a young woman being publicly assaulted and stripped by her husband's family. Robert set down his briefcase. The internet is not being kind to the Hastings family. Vincent pulled out his tablet and showed me. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all flooded with the video and commentary. This is disgusting. How could they do this to her? Rich people are trash. This is why we eat the wealthy. That poor woman. Someone find out who she is so we can support her. The Hastings family should be arrested for assault. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt humiliated all over again, knowing millions of people had watched my worst moment. We can use this, Robert said, all business. Public opinion is on your side. We file for divorce first thing tomorrow morning. We also file assault charges against Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca Hastings. Can we sue them? I asked. Absolutely. Assault, battery, defamation, emotional distress, and public humiliation. We'll take them for everything they're worth. Good, I said, my voice hard. I want them to feel what I felt tonight. Powerless. Exposed. Destroyed. Vincent and Robert exchanged a look. There's something you should know, Vincent said carefully. Hastings Industries has been struggling financially for the past year. They've been hiding it well, but they're vulnerable. I understood immediately. You want to buy them out. I want to take everything from them, Vincent corrected. Their business, their reputation, their place in society. Everything they used to make you feel small. How long will it take? With the right pressure? A week, maybe 2. I thought about Trevor's face when he told me I was nothing. I thought about Patricia's hands tearing my dress. I thought about 3 years of being talked down to, controlled, and made to feel like I should be grateful for their scraps of affection. Do it, I said. Take it all. Robert smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I'll start drafting the papers tonight. By morning we'll have everything ready to file. One more thing, I said. I want a press conference. I want to tell my side of the story. Simone, Vincent began. No, Dad. They humiliated me publicly. I respond publicly. But this time I do it as Simone Montgomery, not Simone Brown. I want everyone to know exactly who I am and who they messed with. Robert nodded approvingly. I can arrange that. Day after tomorrow, once the divorce papers are served. It will create maximum impact. We talked for another hour, planning the details of my counterattack. By the time Robert left, it was past midnight, and I was exhausted but no longer felt powerless. Get some sleep, Vincent said, kissing my forehead. Tomorrow we start fighting back. I went to my old room and climbed into my childhood bed. Despite everything, I fell asleep quickly, my last thought being the look on Trevor's face when he realized his mistake. I woke to sunlight streaming through my windows and the smell of coffee and fresh pastries. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back in and I groaned, pulling the covers over my head. Miss Simone? Martha knocked gently. Your father asked me to bring you breakfast. Come in. She entered with a tray laden with croissants, fruit, coffee, and juice. He's in his office taking calls. He said to take your time this morning. What time is it? Almost 10. I sat up, alarmed. I never slept this late. I should. You should eat and rest, Martha said firmly, setting the tray on my lap. You've been through a terrible ordeal. Your body needs recovery time. I picked at a croissant while Martha opened the curtains wider. The city looked different in daylight, less magical but more real. Martha, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. Do you think I was stupid? Hiding who I was from Trevor? She sat on the edge of my bed, considering her answer. I think you were searching for something real in a world that's often very fake. That's not stupid. That's brave. It didn't feel brave last night. Bravery isn't the absence of fear or pain, Miss Simone. It's walking forward despite them. You walked out of that ballroom with your head high. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you. After Martha left, I showered and dressed in clothes from my old closet. Designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, things I hadn't worn in years. Trevor had preferred me in cheaper clothes, saying it was more authentic. I thought he was being thoughtful, not controlling. I found my father in his home office, surrounded by screens and talking on his headset. He gestured for me to come in. I don't care what it costs, buy it, he was saying. Yes, all of it. I want controlling interest by Friday. He ended the call and smiled at me. Sleep well. Better than expected. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk. What are you buying? Some strategic assets. Nothing you need to worry about today. He removed his headset. Robert will be here in an hour. Are you ready to sign the divorce papers? More than ready. Good. Because I need to explain something to you first. Vincent pulled up a file on his computer. 3 years ago, when you told me you were going to marry Trevor Hastings, what did I say? That he was using me. That his family was old money with new problems. That I should make him sign a prenup. And did you? I nodded. You insisted on writing it yourself. Trevor was furious, but I told him it was non-negotiable. Do you remember what was in that prenup? That we kept our assets separate. That I waived any claim to Hastings' family money, and he waived any claim to mine. Exactly. Which means Trevor gets nothing in this divorce. Zero. But more importantly, Vincent's smile was sharp, it means you kept every penny I've been putting into your trust fund for the last 3 years. I stared at him. What? Did you really think I'd let you go without protection? Every month I've been depositing money into your private accounts. You just never checked them. He pulled up another screen showing bank statements. My jaw dropped. There were millions in accounts I'd forgotten existed. Dad, this is yours. It's always been yours. You're my daughter, Simone. My only child. Half of everything I own is already in your name, held in trust until you're ready to take it. I couldn't speak. For 3 years, I'd lived on my small secretary salary, struggling to make ends meet because I wanted to prove I didn't need my father's money. Meanwhile, he'd been protecting me anyway. You're impossible, I finally said, laughing and crying at the same time. I'm a father. It's my job. Robert arrived exactly on time, carrying a stack of folders. Good morning. Ready to make this official? The divorce papers were straightforward. Irreconcilable differences. No contest. With the prenup, there was nothing to fight over. I signed my name, feeling lighter with each stroke of the pen. These will be served to Trevor at his office at noon, Robert said. I've also prepared the assault charges against Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca Hastings. Do you want to proceed with those? Yes. And the civil suit for damages? Definitely. Excellent. We're asking for $50 million in punitive damages for the assault, defamation, and emotional distress. My eyes widened. $50 million? You were stripped naked in front of 200 people and broadcast to millions online. Your reputation was attacked. Your dignity was violated. $50 million is conservative. Robert's expression was steel. We're also filing a restraining order against all of them. They can't contact you, approach you, or speak about you publicly. How will the media react? Once they find out who you really are? It'll be a feeding frenzy. Robert pulled out another document. Which brings me to this. Your father and I think it's time to reclaim your real name legally. You've been Simone Brown for 3 years. I propose we file to change it back to Montgomery. I looked at my father. He nodded encouragingly. Do it, I said. I'm done hiding. We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail of the legal strategy. At noon, Robert got a text. Papers have been served. Trevor's been notified. My phone started ringing immediately. Trevor's number. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Text messages started flooding in. Simone, please answer. We need to talk. This is insane. Call me. You can't do this. I blocked his number. Next came calls from Patricia, Monica, Rebecca, even people I barely knew from Trevor's social circle. I blocked them all. Let them panic, Vincent said with satisfaction. They earned it. My father's assistant knocked and poked her head in. Mr. Montgomery, the PR team is here. Send them in. 3 people entered, all professionals in sharp suits. The lead woman, Diane, had kind eyes but a shark smile. Miss Montgomery, we've been preparing your media strategy. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Montgomery Plaza Hotel. We're expecting every major outlet to attend. What do I say? The truth. But packaged properly. Diane pulled up a presentation. We're positioning you as the brave young woman who wanted a real love story, not a transaction. You gave up your identity to find genuine connection. Instead, you found abuse and betrayal. That's actually what happened. I know. That's what makes it so powerful. Diane clicked to the next slide. We'll reveal your identity, show the prenup that proves you never wanted their money, and announce the lawsuit. By the time we're done, the Hastings family won't be able to show their faces in public. What about Trevor's business relationships? Leave that to me, Vincent said. I've already made some calls. His phone rang and he answered. Yes? Perfect. Transfer them now. He hung up and looked at me. I just became the majority shareholder of Hastings Industries. My mouth fell open. Already? Their stock has been crashing since the video went viral. I bought shares at a discount. As of 10 minutes ago, I own 51% of their company. What does that mean? It means Gerald Hastings is no longer CEO. The board answers to me now. Vincent's eyes glinted. And I'm making some changes. Robert's phone buzzed. He read the message and laughed. Trevor just tried to withdraw money from his accounts. They've been frozen pending the divorce settlement. How is that possible? The prenup protects your assets, yes. But it also means his assets are fair game for legal holds. We've frozen everything pending the assault charges and lawsuit. He can't access any Hastings family money until this is resolved. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt justice beginning to balance the scales. There's more, Robert continued. I've been contacted by 3 other women who claim Trevor harassed them at work. They're willing to testify about his character. He harassed other women? Apparently, it's been an open secret at his office. No one reported it because the Hastings family was too powerful. Robert's smile was grim. But now that power is crumbling. We worked through lunch refining the strategy. By evening, I was exhausted but determined. Vincent walked me to my room. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I'm also ready to fight. That's my girl. He hugged me tight. Get some rest. Tomorrow we tell the world who you really are. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about 3 years ago when I'd met Trevor at a coffee shop. He'd been charming, attentive, interested in my opinions. I'd fallen hard and fast. Or had I fallen for who I wanted him to be? Looking back with clear eyes, I could see the warning signs. The way he'd isolated me from my father. The subtle criticisms of my clothes, my friends, my interests. The slow erosion of my confidence. I'd mistaken control for care. Never again. I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not for the press conference but for myself. I wrote about every moment of our relationship, the good and the bad. I wrote about the loneliness of hiding who I was. I wrote about the humiliation of last night. And I wrote about who I was going to become. By dawn, I had 20 pages of raw truth. I saved the file and titled it, Reclaiming Myself. Tomorrow the world would know my name. Tomorrow the Hastings family would learn the cost of their cruelty. Tomorrow I started fighting back. The divorce papers hit Trevor's desk at exactly noon, delivered by a courier who wouldn't meet his eyes. I heard about it from Robert, who heard about it from his assistant who had connections at Trevor's office. Apparently, Trevor had turned white, then red, then started shouting. I was having lunch with my father when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You can't do this. Trevor's voice was raw with panic. Simone, please. We need to talk. We have nothing to discuss. I made a mistake. I know that now. But divorce? Really? We can work through this. I almost laughed. You let your mother strip me naked in front of 200 people. You announced you were marrying your mistress. And now you want to work through it? I was angry. I thought. You thought I was nobody. You thought I was worthless without your family's money and name. My voice was ice. You were wrong. What does that mean? It means you should ask your father about his board meeting this morning. I hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone exploded with messages. Not from Trevor this time, but from news alerts. Breaking. Vincent Montgomery acquires controlling interest in Hastings Industries. Billionaire CEO buys out struggling manufacturing firm. Montgomery Industries expands portfolio with Hastings acquisition. I looked at my father, who was calmly eating his salad. You told them? I issued a press release an hour ago. Public companies can't hide major shareholder changes. He wiped his mouth with his napkin. Gerald Hastings was informed this morning that he's been removed as CEO, effective immediately. What happens to him? I offered him a position as a regional manager. In Alaska. I choked on my water. Alaska? He declined. Rather rudely, actually. Vincent smiled. So he gets a severance package and a security escort out of the building. His choice. My phone rang again. This time it was Patricia. I put it on speaker. You little witch, she screamed. What did you do? What did you tell your father? I told him the truth, Patricia. That you assaulted me. Assaulted? I simply removed a dress that rightfully belonged to no one. I bought that dress with my own money. Money from my job, which I worked because I chose to, not because I had to. I paused. But you wouldn't know anything about choosing to work, would you? How dare you? Do you know who we are? I know exactly who you are. The question is, do you know who I am? Silence. Then, what are you talking about? Check the news, Patricia. I think you'll find it enlightening. I hung up and blocked her number. Within 30 minutes, my phone had 17 missed calls from various Hastings family members and associates. I blocked them all. Are you ready for tomorrow? Vincent asked. The press conference. My stomach flipped. I think so. Diane and her team are downstairs. They want to do a practice run. I found the PR team set up in Vincent's home theater, which they'd converted into a mock press room. Cameras, microphones, chairs arranged like a real conference. Simone, come sit. Diane gestured to a chair behind a table. Let's run through your statement. I sat, suddenly feeling very small. What if I mess up? You won't. You're telling your truth. That's always powerful. Diane handed me a copy of the speech they'd prepared. Read through this. Tell me what feels wrong. I read the prepared remarks. They were good, professional, hitting all the right points, but they didn't sound like me. It's too formal, I said. I don't talk like this. Then how do you talk? I thought about it. More directly. Less corporate. Show me. I pushed the paper aside and spoke from my heart. 3 years ago I met a man in a coffee shop. He was charming and kind, or so I thought. I fell in love. But I had a secret. I'm the daughter of Vincent Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Industries. I'm an heiress to a fortune worth billions. Diane leaned forward, interested. I didn't tell Trevor about my family because I wanted to know if he could love me for me. Not for money or connections. Just me. So I used my mother's maiden name, worked a regular job, lived in a regular apartment. I wanted a real love story. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Instead, I got 3 years of manipulation and control. Trevor isolated me from my father. He criticized everything about me, from my clothes to my opinions. He made me feel like I should be grateful he'd chosen to marry someone like me. My voice hardened. And when I wouldn't leave him alone, when I kept trying to make our marriage work, his family decided to teach me a lesson. They publicly humiliated me at their anniversary party. They stripped me in front of 200 people and millions online. They called me a gold digger and trash. I looked directly at the camera. But I'm not trash. I'm Simone Montgomery. I'm educated, accomplished, and wealthy in my own right. I never wanted Trevor's money. I signed a prenup that proved it. I just wanted love. Real, honest love. Tears gathered in my eyes, but I didn't wipe them away. What I got instead was abuse. So I'm filing for divorce. I'm pressing assault charges. And I'm suing the Hastings family for $50 million in damages. Not because I need the money, but because they need to learn that you can't treat people this way. You can't strip away someone's dignity and expect no consequences. I took a breath. To every woman who's been made to feel small by someone who claimed to love you, you're not small. You're not worthless. And you deserve better. I'm standing up for myself, and I hope my story helps someone else find the courage to stand up too. When I finished, the room was silent. Don't change a word, Diane finally said, her eyes bright. That's your speech. That's what you say tomorrow. We practiced for 2 more hours, refining the delivery but keeping the raw emotion. By the time I was done, I felt ready. That evening, Vincent and I had dinner together, just the two of us. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. These last few days, you've shown more strength than most people show in a lifetime. I learned from the best. Your mother would be proud too. I smiled. Mom had passed away from cancer when I was 15. She'd been a force of nature, a lawyer who'd fought for women's rights until the very end. She would have liked my speech, I said. She would have helped you write it. Vincent raised his glass. To your mother who taught us both how to fight. To Mom. We clinked glasses. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. News is out about the charges. Media frenzy beginning. Prepare for chaos. I checked social media. He wasn't kidding. The story was everywhere. Hastings' family faces assault charges. Viral humiliation video leads to criminal investigation. Who is Simone Montgomery? That last question would be answered tomorrow. I went to bed early knowing I needed rest for what was coming. But sleep didn't come easily. I kept thinking about Trevor's face when he realized who I really was. Would he feel regret? Shame? Or just anger that he'd lost access to money he never knew I had? Probably anger. Trevor wasn't capable of real regret. My phone lit up with one final text before I turned it off. Unknown number. Please don't do this. I'm begging you. I love you. Trevor. He'd gotten a new phone. I blocked the number without responding. Love wasn't stripping someone of their dignity. Love wasn't isolation and control. Love wasn't publicly choosing someone else. Trevor had no idea what love meant. But I was learning. Love was my father recording evidence to protect me. Love was Martha bringing me breakfast and brushing my hair. Love was Robert working through the night on my case. Love was people who showed up when things got hard, not when things were easy. I fell asleep with that thought, feeling more at peace than I had in years. Tomorrow I would face the world. Tomorrow I would reclaim my name. Tomorrow the Hastings family would learn that some people fight back. I woke up to the sound of my father on the phone in his office. His voice carried down the hallway, sharp and commanding. I don't care if he's been with the company for 20 years, Robert. If he enabled Trevor's behavior, he goes. Clean house. I want every executive who knew about the harassment and did nothing removed by the end of the week. I got up and padded to his office door. Vincent saw me and gestured for me to come in while he continued his call. The company culture is toxic top to bottom. We're not just replacing leadership, we're replacing the entire attitude. Yes, I know it's expensive. Do it anyway. He hung up and smiled at me. Good morning, sweetheart. Ready for your big day? I heard you firing people. Cleaning house, he corrected. Hastings Industries has been running on old money and older attitudes for too long. Time for fresh blood. How bad is it? Vincent pulled up a file on his computer. 3 sexual harassment complaints filed and buried in the last 2 years. Workplace discrimination against women and minorities. Nepotism so thick you could cut it with a knife. Gerald Hastings ran this company like his personal kingdom. And now you run it. For now. I'm planning to install new leadership and step back. Montgomery Industries doesn't need Hastings Industries. But Hastings Industries needs serious reform. He looked at me. I was thinking of offering you the CEO position once we've cleaned it up. I stared at him. Me? You have a business degree from Columbia. You're smart, ethical, and you understand what it's like to be underestimated. You'd be perfect. Dad, I worked as a secretary for 3 years. I'm not qualified to run a company. You worked as a secretary by choice to maintain a cover. Before that, you were on track to join Montgomery Industries' executive training program. You're more qualified than you think. I sat down, overwhelmed. I don't know. Think about it. No pressure. But the offer stands. Vincent checked his watch. Your press conference is in 4 hours. Diane will be here in 30 minutes to help you prepare. I went to shower and dress, choosing my outfit carefully. I wanted to look professional but approachable. Powerful but not intimidating. I settled on a navy blue suit with a white blouse. Simple pearl earrings. Hair pulled back in a neat bun. Minimal makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Strong. Composed. Ready. Martha knocked and poked her head in. You look beautiful, Miss Simone. I looked terrified. Same thing, dear. She smiled. But you hide it well. Diane arrived with her team and we did final preparations. She walked me through likely questions, how to pivot if things got uncomfortable, when to show emotion and when to stay strong. Remember, she said, you control this narrative. Not them. At 1:30, we left for the Montgomery Plaza Hotel. Vincent insisted on coming with me along with Robert and a security team. Is security necessary? I asked. After what happened at the party? Absolutely. The hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a press room. Rows of chairs filled with reporters, cameras on tripods, microphones clustered on the table where I'd be sitting. My stomach flipped. You've got this, Vincent whispered, squeezing my hand. At exactly 2 p.m., Diane opened the doors. The room fell silent as I walked to the table and sat down. The lights were blinding. I could barely see the audience. Good afternoon, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. My name is Simone Montgomery, and I have a statement to make about the events of 3 nights ago. I launched into my speech, the one I'd written from my heart. I told them about meeting Trevor, about hiding my identity, about 3 years of wanting to be loved for who I was, not what I had. I told them about the humiliation at the party, about being stripped and mocked while 200 people watched and recorded. I told them about filing for divorce and pressing charges. And I told them why. I'm standing here today not just for myself, but for every woman who's been made to feel small. For every person who's been told they're not good enough, not worthy enough, not valuable enough. You're enough. And you deserve to be treated with dignity. When I finished, the room erupted with questions. Miss Montgomery, how do you respond to claims that this is about revenge? It's not revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. What do you say to people who think you should have revealed your identity to your husband? I say that I shouldn't have had to. Love doesn't require a financial statement. Respect doesn't require a bank balance. Are you worried about the Hastings family's response? I'm not worried about anything. I have truth on my side, and that's more powerful than any family name. Miss Montgomery, your father just acquired Hastings Industries. Was that part of your plan? I smiled slightly. My father is his own man who makes his own decisions. But I won't pretend I'm unhappy about it. The questions went on for 30 minutes. I answered each one honestly, keeping my composure even when they got aggressive. Finally, Diane stepped in. Last question. Miss Montgomery, what do you want people to take away from your story? I thought about it carefully. I want people to know that your worth isn't determined by what others think of you. It's determined by how you see yourself. The Hastings family tried to take my dignity. They failed. I'm still standing. I'm still strong. And I'm not going anywhere. The press conference ended to a round of applause, which surprised me. Reporters didn't usually applaud. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed with texts from Robert. Trending #1 on Twitter. Every major news outlet picked it up live. You were perfect. We made it to the car before the adrenaline wore off and I started shaking. You did beautifully, Vincent said, pulling me into a hug. I thought I was going to throw up. You didn't show it. Back at the penthouse, we watched the news coverage together. Every channel was showing clips from my speech, analyzing my words, debating the situation. Most were on my side. Some criticized me for not revealing my identity sooner. A few defended the Hastings family, but they were drowned out by the majority. Robert called at 6. You need to see this. He sent a link to a live stream from outside the Hastings family estate. Protesters had gathered with signs. Rich people aren't above the law. Justice for Simone. Arrest Patricia Hastings. I watched in amazement as the crowd chanted and marched. The police were there, keeping everything peaceful but allowing the protest to continue. Public opinion is firmly against them, Robert said. The district attorney's office has confirmed they're pursuing the assault charges. And I've had 7 law firms call offering to help with the civil suit pro bono. We don't need pro bono, Vincent said drily. I know. But it shows which way the wind is blowing. That evening I finally let myself relax. Vincent ordered my favorite Thai food and we ate while watching mindless television, avoiding the news. But my mind kept wandering to Trevor. What was he thinking right now? Was he angry? Scared? Did he regret his choices? Stop, Vincent said, reading my expression. Stop what? Wondering about him. He doesn't deserve your mental energy. I can't help it. 3 years of my life. Were not wasted. You learned what you don't want. You learned your own strength. And you learned that love without respect is just manipulation with a pretty name. He was right. I knew he was right. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number, but I recognized the words immediately. I've lost everything because of you. My job, my family's business, my reputation. Are you happy now? Trevor. I showed Vincent, who snorted. He lost everything because of himself. Block him. I did. 5 minutes later, another unknown number. Please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Please don't destroy my family. Block. Another number. You're a vindictive witch. I hope you rot. Block. He's getting desperate, Robert said when I called to report it. That's good. Desperate men make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that help us in court. That night, I slept better than I had since the party. The press conference had been cathartic, releasing something tight in my chest. I dreamed about my mother. She was young and healthy, wearing her lawyer's suit, standing in a courtroom. Make them respect you, she said in the dream. Not fear you. Not worship you. Respect you. I woke up with tears on my cheeks but a smile on my face. Today the Hastings family had lost their business. Tomorrow they'd start losing everything else. The unraveling of the Hastings family was faster than anyone expected. It started with the country club. I heard about it from Diane, who heard about it from a board member's wife who felt guilty about recording me at the party. The Meadowbrook Country Club, where the Hastings had been members for 3 generations, held an emergency board meeting 48 hours after my press conference. The vote was unanimous. The entire Hastings family membership was revoked. They cited the assault video as bringing disrepute to the club, Diane told me over coffee. Patricia tried to fight it, but the other members refused to support her. Too much bad publicity. Good, I said, sipping my latte. It gets better. 3 other clubs have followed suit. They're being blackballed from high society. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly empty. Was this what revenge felt like? Hello? Simone. Diane touched my hand. Are you okay? I'm not sure, I admitted. Part of me is glad they're facing consequences. But another part feels like I'm becoming what they accused me of being. Vindictive. You're not vindictive. You're holding them accountable. There's a difference. Diane leaned back. They committed assault on camera and spent 3 years emotionally abusing you. They deserve every consequence coming their way. My phone rang. Robert. Turn on channel 7, he said without preamble. I grabbed the remote and switched channels. A reporter stood outside the Hastings mansion. Sources confirmed that the Hastings family estate, valued at $15 million, has been listed for sale. This comes just days after Vincent Montgomery's acquisition of Hastings Industries and the announcement that the family is facing a $50 million lawsuit. The camera panned to show the for sale sign being planted on the manicured lawn. They're selling the house? I breathed. They have no choice, Robert said. Their liquid assets are frozen. The company stock is worthless. They need cash to fight the lawsuit and cover legal fees. I watched Patricia emerge from the house, wearing sunglasses and a scarf, trying to avoid the cameras. She looked 20 years older than she had at the party. Where will they go? Not our concern, Robert said firmly. Now I have good news. The district attorney is adding criminal conspiracy charges against Trevor for his role in the assault. He may not have physically participated, but he orchestrated it. My breath caught. Trevor could go to jail? If convicted, yes. The DA is taking this very seriously. After Robert hung up, I sat in silence, processing. Trevor in jail. His family homeless. Everything they'd built crumbling to dust. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Vincent found me on the balcony an hour later, staring at the city. Having second thoughts? He asked gently. No. Maybe. I don't know. I turned to him. Is it wrong that I don't feel as good about this as I thought I would? It's not wrong. It's human. He joined me at the railing. Revenge always seems sweet in theory. In practice it's just sad. Necessary sometimes, but sad. Do you regret buying Hastings Industries? Not for a second. That company needed new leadership regardless of our personal situation. I'm actually excited about reforming it. He paused. But I won't pretend I didn't enjoy watching Gerald Hastings clean out his desk. Despite everything, I laughed. There's my girl, Vincent said, squeezing my shoulder. You can acknowledge that they hurt you and still feel complex emotions about their suffering. That's what makes you better than them. That evening, Diane called with more news. Candace Pierce gave an exclusive interview to Celebrity News. Trevor's mistress? Former mistress. She's throwing him completely under the bus. Diane sent me the link. I watched Candace, perfectly made up and tearful, telling her story. I never knew Simone was rich, Candace said into the camera. Trevor told me she was just some secretary who'd trapped him into marriage. He said his family hated her because she was using him. I believed everything. The interviewer leaned forward. When did you realize the truth? When the press conference happened. I saw Simone speak and I realized Trevor had lied about everything. She wasn't a gold digger. She was a good person who'd been abused. Candace wiped away tears. I feel terrible. I participated in her humiliation without knowing the full story. Do you have a message for Simone Montgomery? I'm sorry. I was stupid and selfish and I helped hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I hope she can forgive me someday. I turned off the video feeling sick. Don't fall for it, Vincent said, reading my expression. She's trying to save her own reputation. I know. But what if she really didn't know? Then she's still guilty of participating in cruelty without asking questions. Ignorance isn't innocence. He was right. Candace had laughed while they stripped me. She'd stood next to Trevor while he announced their engagement. Whether she knew the full story or not, she'd been complicit. The next day I went shopping with Martha. I needed new clothes for my new life, and she insisted on coming along to make sure I didn't buy anything that horrible Trevor would have liked. We were at a boutique in the fashion district when I saw her. Rebecca Hastings, Trevor's younger sister, standing in the clearance section. She looked thin and tired, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Our eyes met. She froze. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. But something made me approach her. Rebecca. Simone. Her voice was barely a whisper. I mean, Miss Montgomery. I'm sorry, I don't know what to call you anymore. Simone is fine. We stood in awkward silence. Martha hovered nearby, protective. I'm sorry, Rebecca finally said. For everything. For that night, for how we treated you, for all of it. I was horrible to you. Yes, you were. She flinched but didn't argue. I know you probably hate me. I hate myself. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For whatever that's worth. I studied her. She looked genuinely remorsant, not like Candace's calculated tears. Your mother and sister, I said carefully. Are they sorry too? Mom won't admit she did anything wrong. Monica either. But I know we did. We destroyed your dress, humiliated you, and for what? Because we thought you weren't good enough for our family? Rebecca laughed bitterly. Turns out we weren't good enough for you. That's not. It's true though. You're educated, accomplished, kind. You worked a regular job because you wanted to, not because you had to. And we treated you like garbage because we're shallow, terrible people who judge others by their bank accounts. Martha made a small sound of approval. What are you doing now? I asked. Looking for work. I have a degree in marketing, but no one will hire me. The Hastings name is poison. She gestured at the clearance rack. We've had to sell almost everything. I'm living in a studio apartment with Monica. It's awful, but we deserve it. Part of me wanted to gloat. Another part felt unexpected pity. Rebecca, I'm not going to drop the charges or the lawsuit. I know. I wouldn't either. She met my eyes. I just wanted you to know that at least one of us understands what we did was wrong. Not because we got caught or because we're suffering consequences, but because it was actually genuinely wrong. She walked away before I could respond. Well, Martha said. That was unexpected. She seemed sincere. Maybe. Or maybe she's trying to manipulate you into leniency. I don't think so. I watched Rebecca leave the store, shoulders hunched against the world. I think she's just broken. Good, Martha said firmly. She helped break you first. Now she knows how it feels. We finished shopping, but my mind kept returning to Rebecca's face. She'd looked so different from the confident, cruel woman at the party. That night, I attended a charity gala with Vincent. It was my first major social appearance since the press conference. The moment we walked in, conversation stopped. Everyone stared. Ignore them, Vincent whispered. Head high. We made our way through the crowd. Some people avoided eye contact. Others approached to offer support. Miss Montgomery, what you did was so brave, one woman said, shaking my hand. My daughter was inspired by your story, another told me. But not everyone was supportive. I overheard whispers. She could have told them who she was. This whole thing was unnecessary. Poor Patricia. She's lost everything. I heard she's vindictive. Destroying that family over a simple misunderstanding. I kept my face neutral, but it stung. They're idiots, Vincent muttered. Anyone who calls assault a misunderstanding is morally bankrupt. Halfway through the evening, I excused myself to the restroom. I needed a moment alone. I was washing my hands when Candace walked in. We stared at each other in the mirror. Simone, she said carefully, I saw your interview. Did you believe any of it? The question surprised me with its directness. Does it matter? I asked. To me it does. Candace leaned against the counter. Look, I was awful to you. I participated in something cruel and humiliating. But I genuinely didn't know who you were or what Trevor had told his family about you. You still laughed while they stripped me. I did. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. She paused. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand why you're angry. Are you still with Trevor? God, no. I left him the day after the video went viral. Once I realized he'd lied about everything, I wanted nothing to do with him. Where is he now? Last I heard, he's staying with a friend trying to find a job. No one will hire him either. Candace pulled out her lipstick, then put it back without using it. We're all paying for what we did. As we should. She left without another word. I stood alone in the bathroom, feeling overwhelmed. Everyone was sorry now. Now that there were consequences. Now that they understood who I really was. But where was that remorse when they were tearing my dress? Where was that understanding when they called me trash? I rejoined Vincent and we stayed for another hour before heading home. How do you handle it? I asked in the car. Being surrounded by people who only respect you because of your money? I don't surround myself with those people, Vincent said simply. I surround myself with people who respect me for who I am. Like you. Like Martha. Like Robert. Everyone else is just business. That sounds lonely. Sometimes it is. But it's better than being surrounded by fake friends. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rebecca's apology, Candace's regret, the protesters outside the Hastings mansion. I'd wanted justice. I was getting it. So why did it feel so complicated? The preliminary hearing for the assault charges took place on a gray Tuesday morning. I arrived at the courthouse with Vincent, Robert, and a security detail that seemed excessive until I saw the crowd. Protesters on both sides lined the steps. Team Simone held signs supporting me. Team Hastings, a much smaller group, claimed I was destroying a good family. The media crushed around us, shouting questions. Miss Montgomery, how does it feel to face your attackers? Do you think the charges will stick? Any comment on Trevor Hastings' statement that this is a witch hunt? I kept my head down and let security guide me inside. The courtroom was packed. I took my seat at the prosecutor's table, and for the first time since the party I saw them. Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca Hastings sat at the defense table with their lawyer, a sharp-dressed man who looked expensive. Patricia wore a demure suit and minimal jewelry, clearly trying to look sympathetic. Monica stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. Rebecca looked at me briefly, then away, shame clear on her face. Trevor sat in the gallery behind them, looking haggard. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his expression. Fear. All rise, the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Chin presiding. We stood as the judge entered. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Be seated. We're here for a preliminary hearing in the case of the people versus Patricia Hastings, Monica Hastings and Rebecca Hastings, charged with assault and battery. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Torres, stood. Your Honor, the people have overwhelming evidence in this case. Video from multiple angles showing the defendants physically attacking and stripping the victim in a public setting. We have witness testimony from numerous attendees. We have medical evidence of bruising. This is a clear-cut case of assault. The defense attorney, Richard Sterling, I recognized the name from society pages, stood smoothly. Your Honor, this is a family dispute that's been blown out of proportion. My clients removed a dress, yes, but in the heat of the moment during an emotionally charged family event. This was never intended as assault. They stripped her naked in front of 200 people, Jennifer said sharply. Intent is irrelevant when the action is that severe. Judge Chin held up her hand. I've reviewed the video evidence. I'm ready to hear testimony. Call your first witness. Jennifer called me to the stand. I swore to tell the truth and sat down, acutely aware of every eye on me. Miss Montgomery, please describe what happened the night of October 1st. I took a breath and began. I described arriving at the party, expecting a normal family event. Patricia's sudden attack. The tearing of my dress. Being left in my undergarments. How did you feel? Jennifer asked. Humiliated. Violated. Scared. My voice shook. I couldn't understand why they were doing this to me. Did you resist? I tried. But they held my arms. There were 3 of them. No further questions. Richard Sterling approached for cross-examination, his smile sympathetic. Miss Montgomery, isn't it true that you hid your identity from your husband for 3 years? I used my mother's maiden name, yes. So you lied to him. I withheld information. That's not the same as lying. Isn't it? Sterling's voice was gentle, but his eyes were sharp. You let Trevor believe you were a struggling secretary when you were actually an heiress to billions. Some might call that deceptive. Objection, Jennifer said. Relevance. It goes to character, Your Honor, Sterling said. If Miss Montgomery was deceptive about her identity, we have to question her characterization of events. Overruled. The witness will answer. I looked Sterling in the eye. I wanted to know if Trevor loved me for myself. I learned that he didn't. But my reasons for keeping my background private don't justify assault. Of course not. But doesn't it seem like an overreaction to press charges over what was essentially a family argument? They stripped me naked in public and recorded it for millions to see. That's not an argument. That's assault. Sterling tried a few more angles, but I held firm. Finally, he dismissed me. The prosecutor called 3 witnesses who'd attended the party. All confirmed what the video showed. The defense tried to paint it as a mutual confrontation, but the evidence was too clear. After 2 hours, Judge Chen made her ruling. Based on the evidence presented, I find sufficient cause to bind this case over for trial. The defendants will remain out on bail with the condition that they have no contact with the victim. She looked at Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca sternly. This includes indirect contact through third parties. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down. Patricia's face crumbled. Monica put her head in her hands. Rebecca just nodded, accepting it. As we filed out, Trevor tried to approach me in the hallway. "Simone, please. Can we talk?" Security stepped between us. "Mr. Hastings, you need to step back," the guard said firmly. "I just want 5 minutes. Please. I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, not looking at him. "Your lawyer can talk to my lawyer." "Simone, I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you." I stopped and turned to face him. Really face him for the first time since that night. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled suit, dark circles under his eyes. The confident man I'd married was gone. "You don't love me, Trevor. You love what I represented. Someone you could control. Someone who made you feel powerful." I kept my voice level. "But I was never that person. You just convinced yourself I was. That's not true. I married you because you thought I was harmless. Someone who'd be grateful for the Hastings name and money. Someone who'd never challenge you." I stepped closer. "But I don't need your name. I don't need your money. And I definitely don't need you." I walked away, leaving him standing in the courthouse hallway. In the car, I felt lighter somehow. "That was well said," Vincent commented. It was the truth. Robert called as we drove home. The preliminary hearing went exactly as expected. We're on track for trial in 3 months. And I have news about the civil suit. Good news? The Hastings family's lawyers contacted me about settling. I sat up straighter. They want to settle? They're offering $5 million to make it go away. I'm suing for $50 million. I know. I told them the offer was insulting. Robert sounded amused. They're desperate. The criminal trial will cost them millions in legal fees alone. They can't afford to fight on 2 fronts. What should I do? That depends. Do you want to make them suffer through a long public trial? Or do you want to be done with this and move on with your life? I thought about it. How much are they willing to go up to? I can probably get $25 million if we push hard. Maybe 30. Counter with $40 million and a public apology. Written statement admitting what they did was wrong, posted on all their social media, and a full-page ad in the New York Times. That's brutal, Robert said admiringly. They were brutal first. Over the next week, lawyers negotiated back and forth. The Hastings family fought the apology requirement hard, but Robert held firm. Either they admit wrongdoing publicly or we go to trial and I make sure every detail of their cruelty becomes part of the public record. Finally, they agreed. $35 million and a full public apology. I sat in Robert's office looking at the settlement papers. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "We could win more at trial." "It's not about the money," I said, signing my name. "It's about them acknowledging what they did. The apology is worth more than the extra millions." The next day, the Hastings family posted their statement. "We, the Hastings family, publicly apologize to Simone Montgomery for our actions at our anniversary party. What we did was wrong. We physically assaulted her, publicly humiliated her, and caused her severe emotional distress. We accept full responsibility for our actions and the harm we caused. We are deeply sorry and hope that Simone can eventually find it in her heart to forgive us." It was signed by Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca. The post went viral immediately. Comments poured in. "Too little too late. They're only sorry because they got caught. At least they finally admitted it. Simone Montgomery is a queen for making them do this." I read through the responses, feeling oddly detached. They'd apologized. They'd paid. Justice had been served. So why did I still feel empty? That evening, I had dinner with Vincent at his favorite restaurant. Midway through our meal, an older woman approached our table. "Excuse me, are you Simone Montgomery?" I tensed, unsure what was coming. "Yes. I just wanted to thank you. My daughter was in an abusive relationship. She saw your press conference and found the courage to leave. You saved her life." Tears pricked my eyes. I'm glad she's safe. You're doing important work. Don't let anyone tell you different. The woman touched my shoulder and walked away. I looked at Vincent, who was smiling. That, he said, is why you did this. Not for revenge. For every person who needed to see someone stand up and fight back. For the first time since this began, I felt like maybe the pain had been worth it. Maybe justice wasn't about making others suffer. Maybe it was about making sure it didn't happen to someone else. 3 weeks after the settlement, I started working at Montgomery Industries. Vincent had created a position for me, Vice President of Corporate Ethics and Workplace Culture. It's perfect for you, he'd said. You understand what it's like to be powerless in a toxic work environment. You can help make sure our company is better. My first day was nerve-wracking. I'd been to the Montgomery Industries headquarters before, but always as Vincent's daughter. Now I was an executive with my own office, my own team, my own responsibilities. My assistant, Grace, was an efficient woman in her 40s who had worked for the company for 15 years. Your morning meetings start at 9, she said, handing me a schedule. I've prepared briefing documents on all current workplace issues. Coffee is in the break room, but I can get it for you if you prefer. I can get my own coffee, I said, smiling. Thank you, Grace. She looked surprised but pleased. Most executives don't. I'm not most executives. My first meeting was with the head of HR, a stern woman named Dorothy, and a man I didn't recognize. Miss Montgomery, this is Harrison Cole, Dorothy said. He's the lead architect on our new corporate campus project. Harrison stood to shake my hand. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. He wore casual business clothes, khakis and a button-down, no tie. Nice to meet you, he said. I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure, I joked. Actually, all impressive. Your father speaks very highly of you. We sat down to discuss the new campus design. Harrison's plans included dedicated spaces for employee wellness, nursing rooms for working mothers, and accessibility features beyond standard requirements. I believe workspace affects culture, he explained, pulling up renderings on his laptop. If we design buildings that respect all employees, we create a culture that respects all employees. That's exactly the approach I want to take, I said, genuinely excited. Can we add these wellness spaces to our existing buildings too? Absolutely. I can draw up retrofit plans. We talked for an hour, brainstorming ideas. Harrison listened to my suggestions without dismissing them, asked thoughtful questions, and built on my ideas rather than talking over them. It was refreshing. I think we're going to work well together, he said as the meeting ended. Over the next few weeks, Harrison and I met regularly to discuss the campus project. He'd bring coffee to our meetings, always remembering that I took mine with cream and 1 sugar. You don't have to do that, I said one morning. I know. I want to. He grinned. Besides, you bring ideas that make my job more interesting. Coffee is fair trade. I found myself looking forward to our meetings. Harrison was easy to talk to, genuinely passionate about his work, and treated me like a colleague, not the boss's daughter. One afternoon we were reviewing plans when he asked, "How are you doing?" With everything that happened, I mean. I'm okay, I said automatically. It's okay to not be okay, you know? I looked up, surprised by his directness. I watched your press conference, Harrison continued. What they did to you was horrible. Nobody bounces back from trauma that quickly. I'm trying to move forward. Moving forward doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. He leaned back in his chair. My sister went through something similar. Not as public, but her ex was emotionally abusive. She thought she had to be strong and just get over it. But healing doesn't work that way. What happened to her? She eventually went to therapy, joined a support group, and took time to process everything. Now she's doing great. But it took time. I thought about that. I'd been so focused on the legal battle and revenge that I hadn't really processed the emotional damage. Maybe you're right, I admitted. I usually am, he said with a slight smile. But don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my modest reputation. I laughed and it felt good. That evening, I mentioned Harrison to Vincent over dinner. Harrison Cole, Vincent said thoughtfully. Good man. Brilliant architect. His firm has won multiple awards. He's nice. Oh, that's the he's nice tone. What tone? The tone women use when they're interested in someone but don't want to admit it yet. Vincent's eyes twinkled. Should I arrange for you two to work more closely together? Dad. I'm just saying the man is single, successful, kind, and apparently perceptive enough to see through your I'm fine act. Sounds like a keeper. I just got divorced. I'm not ready for anything. I'm not suggesting you marry him tomorrow, but friendship with someone who understands struggle? That could be healing. I thought about Vincent's words as I got ready for bed that night. Harrison did understand. He'd watched his sister go through abuse and come out stronger. He knew what healing looked like. The next week, Harrison invited me to lunch. Not a work lunch, he clarified quickly. Just lunch, if you want. No pressure. I hesitated. Was this a date? Did I want it to be a date? Just as friends, Harrison added, reading my uncertainty. I thought you might like to get away from the office for an hour. But if you're not comfortable. No, lunch sounds nice. We went to a small cafe near the office. Harrison ordered a sandwich. I got a salad. So, he said after we'd been eating for a few minutes, what do you do for fun? When you're not working or dealing with legal battles? I realized I didn't know. What did I do for fun anymore? I used to paint, I said slowly. Watercolors. But I haven't in years. Why'd you stop? Trevor said it was a waste of time. That I should focus on being a better wife instead of pursuing hobbies. Harrison's jaw tightened. He said that. Among other things. What an ass. I burst out laughing at his bluntness. You can't say that about my ex-husband. Why not? It's true. Anyone who tells their partner to stop doing something they love is an ass. It's a technical term. We talked for the rest of lunch about art, architecture, books, movies. Harrison was well-read and had opinions about everything, but he listened to mine too. You should start painting again, he said as we walked back to the office. Life's too short to give up things that bring you joy. That weekend I bought art supplies. I set up an easel in my room at Vincent's penthouse and tried to paint. My first attempt was terrible. The colors bled wrong, the proportions were off, the whole thing was a disaster. But it felt wonderful. I sent Harrison a photo of my awful painting. He responded immediately. It's beautiful. Keep going. You're a liar. It's terrible. Okay, it's terrible. But you made it and that's what matters. Same time next weekend? For another terrible painting? For progress. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither is artistic skill. Over the next month, Harrison and I developed an easy friendship. We had lunch once a week, texted occasionally about work and non-work topics, and he continued to encourage my painting. He never pushed for more. Never made me feel pressured or uncomfortable. It was exactly what I needed. One day, Trevor showed up at my office. Grace tried to stop him, but he pushed past her. Simone, please. I need to talk to you. I looked up from my desk, anger flashing through me. You're violating the restraining order. I don't care. I need you to listen. Harrison happened to be there, reviewing campus plans. He stood up, putting himself between Trevor and me. The lady asked you to leave. Trevor looked at Harrison with contempt. Who the hell are you? Someone who respects her enough to listen when she says no. Harrison pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. You can leave now or be escorted out in handcuffs. Your choice. Simone, please, Trevor begged. I've lost everything. My family is broke. I can't find work. I'm living in a studio apartment with no furniture. You have to help me. I don't have to do anything, I said coldly. But you're rich. You have billions. What's a few million to you? Please, I'm begging you. Harrison spoke into his phone. Security to Miss Montgomery's office. Now. I loved you, Trevor said desperately. I still love you. Doesn't that mean anything? You don't know what love means, I said. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't stand by while your family assaults someone. You might have felt something for me once, Trevor, but it wasn't love. Security arrived and escorted Trevor out. He shouted the whole way, desperate and angry. After they left, I was shaking. Are you okay? Harrison asked gently. No. Yes. I don't know. I sat down heavily. He looked so pathetic. That's not your responsibility. I know. But seeing him like that. I trailed off. Made you feel guilty? A little. Don't. He created this situation. He chose to stand by while his family assaulted you. He chose his mistress over his wife. He chose to lie and manipulate. Harrison sat down across from me. You're not obligated to save him from the consequences of his own choices. When did you get so wise? I have 3 sisters. I've learned a lot about how women are conditioned to feel guilty for setting boundaries. That evening, Robert called. Trevor violated the restraining order. We can have him arrested. Do it, I said without hesitation. He needs to understand that no means no. Trevor spent the night in jail and was arraigned the next morning on contempt charges. The judge extended the restraining order and warned him that another violation would result in serious jail time. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. "You're allowed to be tired of this," Harrison said when I confided in him over lunch the next day. "You've been fighting for months. It's exhausting. I just want it to be over. It will be. Soon." He paused. "In the meantime, want to do something fun this weekend? No work, no stress, just fun." "Like what?" "There's an art exhibit at the museum. Modern watercolors. I thought you might enjoy it." "That sounds perfect." We went on Saturday. Harrison picked me up in his sensible sedan, not trying to impress me with a fancy car. The exhibit was beautiful. We wandered through galleries looking at stunning watercolor pieces, discussing technique and composition. "You could do this," Harrison said, looking at one particularly abstract piece. "Not yet. But maybe someday." After the museum, we got ice cream and walked through the park. It was simple and normal and exactly what I needed. "Thank you," I said as he drove me home. "For being a good friend." "Always," he said simply. That night, Vincent noticed my smile. "Good day?" he asked. "Really good day." "Harrison." "Maybe." Vincent laughed. "I knew it. You're healing, sweetheart." "That's good to see." I was healing. Slowly, bit by bit. And Harrison was helping just by being there. The criminal trial began on a cold Monday morning in November. I'd been dreading this day for months. The courtroom was packed again. Patricia, Monica, and Rebecca sat at the defense table looking somber. Their lawyer had prepared them well, coaching them to appear remorseful. I took my seat beside Jennifer Torres, the prosecutor. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." The judge, same as before, called the court to order. "We're here for the trial of people versus Patricia Hastings, Monica Hastings, and Rebecca Hastings. Is the prosecution ready to present?" "Yes, Your Honor." The trial lasted 3 days. Jennifer presented the video evidence, witness testimony, medical reports of my bruising. She built a methodical case that was impossible to refute. The defense tried to argue provocation, claiming I'd deceived their family and they'd reacted in understandable anger. "Even if Miss Montgomery had lied about her identity," Jennifer countered in her closing argument, "that does not give anyone the right to physically assault her. We don't get to attack people because we're angry. That's not how civilized society works." On the third day, it was time for closing arguments. Jennifer stood before the jury, her voice strong. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is simple. 3 women attacked another woman at a party. They ripped off her clothing, leaving her exposed and humiliated in front of hundreds of people. This was recorded and broadcast worldwide. The defendants claim they were provoked, but there is no provocation that justifies assault. I ask you to find them guilty and send a clear message. Wealth and social standing do not place anyone above the law." The defense attorney argued that it was a family matter that had gotten out of hand, that my wealth and influence had turned a private dispute into a public witch hunt. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. I waited in a private room with Vincent and Robert, pacing nervously. "They'll convict," Robert said confidently. "The evidence is overwhelming. But what if they don't? What if the jury feels sorry for them? Then we appeal," Vincent said calmly. "But that won't happen." Finally, word came. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. I held my breath as the jury foreman stood. "In the case of People versus Patricia Hastings, we find the defendant guilty of assault and battery." Patricia gasped, covering her mouth. "In the case of People versus Monica Hastings, we find the defendant guilty of assault and battery." Monica closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "In the case of People versus Rebecca Hastings, we find the defendant guilty of assault and battery." Rebecca nodded, accepting it. The courtroom erupted in noise. The judge banged her gavel. "Order. Sentencing will be scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Defendants will remain out on bail until then." Outside, the media swarmed. "Miss Montgomery, how do you feel about the verdict?" "Relieved," I said simply. "Justice has been served. What do you want to see for sentencing?" "I want them to understand that their actions have consequences. Beyond that, it's up to the judge." 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. The judge looked at the 3 women sternly. "I've reviewed the evidence, the pre-sentencing reports, and the victim impact statement. What you did was cruel, premeditated, and caused severe harm. However, I also note that you have no prior criminal record and have expressed remorse." She paused. "Patricia Hastings, you are sentenced to 1 year in county jail, suspended, with 3 years probation. You will also complete 500 hours of community service and attend anger management classes. Patricia sobbed with relief. Monica Hastings, same sentence. Rebecca Hastings, I note that you've shown genuine remorse and have taken responsibility for your actions. Same sentence, but with the possibility of early termination of probation with good behavior. Rebecca whispered, Thank you, Your Honor. Additionally, all three of you are ordered to stay away from Miss Montgomery permanently. Any contact will result in immediate jail time. The gavel came down. It was over. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. The legal battle was done. The Hastings family had been held accountable. I could finally move on. That evening, Harrison took me to dinner to celebrate. How does it feel? He asked over wine. Strange. I've been focused on this for so long and now it's just done. What happens now? I focus on work, on my foundation, on building a life I actually want. Sounds like a good plan. Harrison raised his glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses and I realized I was genuinely happy. Not just relieved or vindicated, but actually happy. I have a confession, Harrison said after we'd ordered food. What? I Googled you before our first meeting. I knew who you were and what had happened. And I was prepared to dislike you. I thought you might be another spoiled rich kid playing at having a job. He smiled sheepishly. But you weren't. You were smart, passionate, and genuinely cared about making things better. I realized I judged you unfairly. Thank you for telling me. I wanted you to know that I like you for who you are now, not because of your name or your story or anything else. Just you. My heart fluttered. Just me? Just you. We held eye contact for a long moment. Harrison, I said carefully. What is this? Honestly? I don't know. I like spending time with you. I think you're amazing. But I also know you're healing from something traumatic, and I don't want to rush you into anything. What if I said I wanted to try? Slowly? His smile was warm and genuine. Then I'd say I'd like that very much. Okay then. Okay. We finished dinner talking about everything and nothing. It felt easy and natural and right. When he drove me home, he walked me to the door. Can I call you tomorrow? He asked. I'd like that. He leaned in, then hesitated. Can I? I kissed him before he finished asking. It was soft and gentle and perfect. Good night, Harrison. Good night, Simone. I floated into the penthouse, finding Vincent reading in the living room. Good night? He asked innocently. The best. I'm happy for you, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. I went to bed that night feeling like my life was finally moving in the right direction. The next morning, I got a call from my foundation director. Simone, you need to see this. She sent me a link to a news article. A woman named Jennifer had come forward to tell her story of escaping an abusive relationship after watching my press conference. Simone Montgomery showed me that I didn't have to accept abuse, Jennifer was quoted. If she could stand up to her attackers publicly, I could leave privately. She saved my life. Tears filled my eyes as I read. This was what it was all about. Not revenge. Not punishment. Hope. For others who needed to see someone fight back and survive. I forwarded the article to Harrison. This is why you did it, he texted back. You're a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being treated badly. Same thing sometimes. That week, 3 more women contacted my foundation, all saying my story had inspired them to leave abusive situations. My foundation director suggested starting a support group for survivors of public humiliation and abuse. We could provide therapy, legal resources, job training, everything they need to rebuild. Do it, I said immediately. Whatever it costs. The group started with 5 members. Within a month we had 20. I attended the meetings sometimes, sharing my story and listening to theirs. One woman about my age said, I thought I was crazy for being upset about what my boyfriend did to me. He said I was too sensitive. But hearing your story made me realize I had a right to be angry. You do, I told her firmly. You always do. Helping others heal helped me heal. The nightmares about the party faded. The anxiety about running into Trevor lessened. The anger that had consumed me transformed into purpose. 6 months after the verdict, Vincent called me into his office. I have a proposal, he said. I want to make you CEO of Hastings Industries. I stared at him. What? I've spent 6 months restructuring the company. New leadership, new culture, new mission. It's ready for someone to take it to the next level. I think that should be you. Dad, I'm barely qualified. You're more qualified than you know. You've spent 6 months building a foundation from scratch, managing teams, making strategic decisions. You're ready. What about my current position? You can do both. Or promote someone to take over ethics and culture. It's your choice. I thought about it. Running a company that had once belonged to the family who tried to destroy me? Yes, I said. I'll do it. That's my girl. The press release went out that afternoon. Simone Montgomery, CEO of Hastings Industries. The media went crazy. From victim to victor. Simone Montgomery takes over company owned by family who assaulted her. Billionaire's daughter gets ultimate revenge, becomes CEO of attacker's company. Hastings Industries gets fresh start under Montgomery leadership. I gave one interview to a business magazine. Is this revenge? The reporter asked. No, I said honestly. This is transformation. Hastings Industries was a toxic place that hurt a lot of people. Now it's going to be a company that treats employees with dignity and respect. That's not revenge. That's justice. What would you say to the Hastings family? I'd say thank you. They tried to break me, but instead they showed me how strong I really was. I wouldn't be here without them. So, thank you. The article went viral, praised for my grace and maturity. Patricia Hastings tried to issue a response, but her lawyer advised against it. She was still on probation. Trevor, I heard, moved to another state to start over with a new name. I didn't care. He was no longer part of my story. My story was about building something new and better. With Harrison by my side, my father's support, and a purpose that mattered. I'd survived. And now I was thriving. 8 months after the verdict, I stood in the main conference room of Hastings Industries, which I'd renamed Hastings Montgomery Industries, looking out at faces both familiar and new. Good morning, everyone, I said to my executive team. Let's talk about Q4 projections. The meeting ran smoothly. The old guard was gone, replaced by diverse, talented leaders who shared my vision of ethical business practices. After the meeting, I returned to my office, which I'd completely redesigned. Gone were the dark wood and intimidating furniture. Now it was bright and open with comfortable chairs and plants everywhere. Grace knocked. Mr. Cole is here for your lunch meeting. Harrison walked in with takeout bags. I brought Thai. Hope that's okay. Perfect. I cleared space on my desk and we sat together eating pad thai straight from the containers. How's the campus project coming? I asked. Ahead of schedule. We break ground next month. Harrison showed me updated renderings. The wellness center is going to be amazing. 3 therapy rooms, a meditation space, and a full gym. I love it. We've been dating for 6 months now, taking it slow and steady. Harrison never pushed, never demanded. He just showed up, consistently kind and supportive. My sister wants to meet you, he said casually. I paused, noodles halfway to my mouth. The sister who went through the abusive relationship? Yeah. She says anyone who can turn trauma into a foundation that helps other women is someone she needs to know. I'd love to meet her. Great. How about dinner this weekend? Nothing formal, just family. Family, I repeated, testing the word. Felt good. That weekend, we had dinner at Harrison's sister's house. Melissa was warm and funny, with 2 young kids who immediately tried to show me their toy collection. Harrison talks about you constantly, Melissa said while we watched the kids play. It's annoying, honestly. Melissa, Harrison groaned. What? You do. Simone said this, Simone did that. She grinned at me. But I get it. You're pretty great. So are you. We talked about her experience leaving her abusive ex, the therapy that helped, the support group that saved her. Harrison told me about your foundation, she said. I'd love to volunteer if you need help. We always need help. Melissa and I exchanged numbers and she gave me a hug when we left. I like your sister, I told Harrison in the car. She likes you too. She texted me that you're a keeper. Oh yeah. Yeah. He reached over and took my hand. For what it's worth, I agree with her. My heart swelled. I think you're a keeper too. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected email. From Rebecca Hastings. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Dear Simone, I know I have no right to contact you, and if you want to report this to the court, I understand. But I wanted you to know that I've completed my community service at a women's shelter. Working there opened my eyes to so much. I met women who'd been through what you went through. Some worse. I heard their stories and realized how many people my family has probably hurt over the years with our casual cruelty. I'm in therapy now, working through why I thought treating people badly was acceptable. My therapist says I was raised in a toxic environment and mimicked what I saw. That's not an excuse, just an explanation. I'm also working at that shelter full-time now. I'm not management or anything important, just answering phones and helping with donations. But it feels meaningful. I wanted to say I'm sorry again. Not because I want anything from you, but because you deserve to hear it. What we did was unforgivable, and I live with that every day. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Rebecca. I showed the email to Harrison that evening. What do you think? I asked. I think people can change, he said carefully. But that doesn't mean you have to forgive her or respond. I know. I sat with the email for a few days, then finally replied. Rebecca, I appreciate your email and your honesty. I'm glad you're getting help and doing meaningful work. I can't say I forgive you because I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. But I can say I hope you continue healing and helping others. The best apology is change behavior. Keep changing. Simone. I didn't hear back, and that was okay. Some conversations don't need a response. In December, the foundation held its first annual gala. We'd grown from that initial support group to a full organization helping hundreds of women. I stood at the podium in a stunning emerald dress, looking out at the crowd of supporters. A year ago, I was stripped naked in front of 200 people. I began. The room went silent. I was humiliated, degraded, and made to feel worthless. Some of you saw the video. Some of you were there. I paused. But I'm not standing here tonight to talk about that moment. I'm here to talk about what came after. The choice to fight back. The decision to turn pain into purpose. The women I've met who survived worse and came out stronger. I gestured to the crowd. Every person in this room has contributed to our foundation. You've helped us provide therapy, legal aid, job training, and housing assistance to survivors of abuse. You've saved lives. And I thank you for that. The crowd applauded. This year, we helped 247 women leave abusive situations. We provided over 10,000 hours of therapy. We placed 89 women in new jobs. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. And we're building a community where no one has to face abuse alone. More applause. So tonight, let's celebrate what we've built together. And let's commit to building even more in the year ahead. As I left the podium, Vincent pulled me into a hug. Your mother would be so proud, he whispered. I know, Dad. Harrison found me later, bringing me champagne. Great speech, he said. Thanks. We stood together, watching the party swirl around us. I have something to ask you, Harrison said nervously. What? Move in with me. I looked at him, surprised. Really? Really? I know it's only been 8 months, and if it's too soon, that's okay. But I love spending time with you, and I want more of it. No pressure, just... I kissed him, cutting off his rambling. Yes, I said when we broke apart. I'd love to move in with you. His smile was brilliant. Yeah. That night, I told Vincent about Harrison's offer. Are you sure you're ready? He asked gently. I'm sure. Harrison makes me happy, Dad. Really happy. Then I'm happy for you. He paused. But you're always welcome here. This is your home too. I know. And I'll visit all the time. I moved into Harrison's loft the following month. It was bright and open, full of his architectural sketches and my paintings. We fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee together in the mornings. Dinner most evenings. Weekends exploring the city or just staying home. It was simple and normal and wonderful. One evening we were cooking dinner together when Harrison asked, Do you ever miss him? Trevor? No, I said honestly. I miss who I thought he was. But that person never existed. Trevor showed me exactly who he was at that party. I don't miss that. Do you think you'll ever get married again? Maybe. Someday. If I find someone I trust completely. Harrison nodded, returning his attention to chopping vegetables. What about you? I asked. You've never been married? Came close once. She wanted someone who worked less and earned more. I'm passionate about my work and I won't apologize for that. You shouldn't have to. Exactly. He looked at me. With you, I don't have to be anyone but myself. That's rare. Same. 6 months later, at our foundation's second annual gala, I saw someone unexpected in the crowd. Trevor. He'd bought a ticket under a different name, clearly trying to sneak in. But I recognized him immediately, despite the beard and weight loss. Security noticed my reaction and approached. Do you want him removed, Miss Montgomery? I looked at Trevor. He looked back at me and I saw something I'd never seen before. Acceptance. Not of me but of what he'd lost. Let him stay, I said. But watch him. Trevor stayed in the back the entire evening. When I gave my speech about the foundation's growth and success, he listened. When I mentioned Harrison and thanked him for his support, Trevor's face crumpled. He left before the event ended, slipping out quietly. I never saw him again. Why did you let him stay? Harrison asked later. Because I wanted him to see what I built without him. I wanted him to understand that destroying me was the biggest mistake of his life. That's actually kind of brilliant. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of my father. As spring arrived, the new corporate campus was completed. Harrison had designed something stunning, a series of buildings that felt open and welcoming while still being professional. At the opening ceremony, I gave a speech about building better workplaces. We can't control what happened to us in the past, I said to the assembled employees and press. But we can control what we build in the future. This campus represents a commitment to treating people with dignity, respect, and care. May we always remember that business success means nothing if we achieve it by hurting others. The campus opened to rave reviews. Employees loved the wellness spaces, the natural light, the thoughtful design. Harrison and I stood together, looking at what we'd created. We make a good team, he said. We really do. That evening, he took me to dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first non-work lunch. Do you remember our first time here? He asked. Of course. You asked me what I did for fun, and I realized I didn't know any more. And now I paint. I run a foundation. I'm CEO of a company. I spend time with you. I smiled. I have fun. Good. Harrison pulled out a small box. My heart stopped. Simone Montgomery, you're the strongest, kindest, most impressive person I've ever met. You turned trauma into purpose. You built something beautiful from pain. And you let me be part of your journey. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. I know we said we'd take things slow. But I also know that slow or fast, I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face. Yes. Absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me while the entire restaurant applauded. We called Vincent from the car. About time, he said when we told him. I was wondering when Harrison would get around to it. You knew. He asked my permission 2 months ago. I told him to make you happy, and he's done that. Vincent's voice was warm. Congratulations, sweetheart. Your mother would have loved him. I cried happy tears all the way home. The wedding was small and intimate, just family and close friends. No big party, no spectacle. Just love and commitment. Melissa was my maid of honor. Vincent walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. Harrison's vows made me cry. I promise to support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and stand by you in every challenge. I promise to be your partner, not your owner. Your equal, not your superior. And I promise to love you exactly as you are, for as long as I live. My vows were simpler. I promise to build a life with you, not for you. To share my true self, not a performance. And to choose you every day for the rest of my life. We exchanged rings and kissed as husband and wife. The reception was at Vincent's penthouse, full of laughter and joy. Martha cried through the whole thing, proud of the woman I'd become. As Harrison and I danced our first dance, I looked around at the people who'd supported me through the darkest time of my life. Vincent, who'd protected me and given me space to heal. Robert, who'd fought for justice on my behalf. Melissa, who'd welcomed me into her family. The women from my foundation, who'd found courage in my story and given me purpose in return. This was my family. Not perfect but real. What are you thinking? Harrison asked, holding me close. That I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Good. That's all I ever wanted for you. We swayed together and I felt at peace. A year ago, I'd been stripped of everything: my dignity, my marriage, my illusions about love. But from that devastation, I'd built something better. A career I was proud of. A foundation that mattered. A marriage built on respect and equality. And most importantly, I'd found myself again. The strong, capable woman I'd been before Trevor. The woman my mother had raised me to be. As the song ended and our guests applauded, Harrison whispered in my ear, "Ready for the next chapter?" I smiled, thinking of everything we'd build together. More than ready. And I was.